Devo webinar on our behavior analytics. We're just going to give everyone about 5 minutes to trickle in here, and then we'll get started. We'll just give it 2 more minutes, and then we can get started. Welcome to the new people joining as well. All right, I think we are good to get started. Adam and Jacob, you're both ready, correct?
Yeah.
All righty, sounds good. Well, like I was saying, thank you again, everyone, for joining today's Devo webinar on behavior analytics. And any questions or that you want to save for the end, you can drop into the Q&A box. And once we get to the end of the webinar and after the demo and everything, I'll go through everyone's questions and make sure they have an answer to them. And if you have anyone from your team that was unable to join today and you find might be interested, we also will be recording this and it goes into a repository on our website. But with that, let's get started. So kind of just to go over today's speakers, my name is Shannon Darkangelo. I'm on the product marketing team, more specifically on the customer marketing team. So I work with Adam and Jacob on webinars like these. And then also on the call, we have Adam, our Manager of Technical Marketing, and Jacob, our Director of Technical Acceleration. Just to quickly go through the agenda, I'm sure you guys took a chance to look when you were signing up, of course, on our website. But to begin, we will go through some SOC challenges. We'll introduce Devo Behavior Analytics, go over the capabilities. Jacob will actually then take us into a demo. And kind of to bring it full circle, we'll tie into why Devo. And then after that, like I said, any questions you have and you want to drop into the box over there in the chat, we'll go through a Q&A as well. And before we get into this, I did want to touch base on some of the quotes that we have from our customers who have already had experience with Devo Behavior Analytics. And from one of our customers at Ulta, we have the quote with Devo Behavior Analytics identify anomalous activity that may have otherwise gone undetected to uncover public-facing login portals that should be private. And then to also go off of that, one of our customers, James Cassidy from Oklahoma or University of Oklahoma, said a prime example of how they leverage Devo is with Devo Behavior Analytics to detect and respond to users without permissions to access information they shouldn't have been able to. So just to put this into perspective, some of our customers are using this already and happy with the results they've seen with it. And now we can go into, I will pass it over to Adam to start getting into things.
Thanks, Shannon. So, hey, everyone, I'm Adam Foyd, Manager of Technical Marketing here at Devo. Thanks for taking the time to join us on the webinar today. So I just want to go back to first principles. I know some of you are Devo customers. I know many of you aren't, but the problem that two of the problems we've been trying to solve here at Devo since the beginning are the explosion of data, the ever expanding attack surface, a larger increase in data volume of logs and telemetry, across an ever widening array of environments and technology stacks, and an increase in the number of attackers and threats in general. So all of that scale and volume problem compounded with the fact that this produces an unrealistic deluge of alerts for the SOC. Investigations are a manual, swivel chair, time-consuming, complex process. And there's not enough resources or people in the SOC, and that leads to, burnout, slow response times, and just the nature of the fact that we as defenders have to be right and successful 100% of the time, where an attacker only has to be successful 1% of the time in order to be effective. So that broad asymmetry creates compounding pressures on the SOC, and we here at Devo have been trying to solve that problem with technology for a while. And this UEBA offering is just the latest iteration, the latest additive step in our arsenal of tools to fight that problem. And it is a real problem. It's not just what we hear from our customers and what they want, but the numbers bear it out as well. We know that most people in the SOC are using dozens of different security tools, which leads to that time-consuming swivel chair analysis. We know that SOCs, in fact, over 25% of SOCs are looking at over 1 million incidents or alerts per day. That is just, and that number is going up all the time. So that's just unsustainable as it scales out and grows. And we certainly don't have that kind of growth in resources, either funding or people in the SOC to do that. There's certainly a funnel of labor for SOC analysts, and that ability to move a SOC analyst from beginner to intermediate to advanced to expert ninja, that funnel to move those resources through isn't getting any faster either. So all of that results in too much work, too little resources, problem which creates burnout, and certainly many things are slipping through the cracks, which is why attackers are still so successful in incredible numbers. So in addition to that scalability problem, right, we also know that these attacks are getting more sophisticated. As soon as we come out with a rule-based or signature-based kind of detection, the attackers change their tactics a little bit in that cat and mouse game. And we know that on top of that, attacks against users or endpoints through things like phishing are still successful because users are still incredibly fallible. And once you take over somebody's credentials or just have a user doing something they shouldn't be doing over out of ignorance or maliciousness, those types of sophisticated insider attacks are very, very difficult to catch. So the latest tool that we're bringing to bear here in this fight for our customers is user and entity behavioral analytics. Now, we've had entity analytics in the platform for quite some time. For those of you who have been using Devo, certainly you are used to some of the entity analytics, like the entity scorecard that are in there now. But this is really a combination of data and a wide variety of data sources, events and logs, things, data ingest from agents, firewalls, authentication pieces, enriched with HR and user context and threat intelligence data, run through a bunch of behavioral models to look for things like malicious insiders or compromised user credentials or privilege escalation, as well as known threats. All of that produces analytics to help you spot these types of attacks, get the detections in the hands of the right people to respond quickly and remediate the threat. And it's not just Devo. We're not just doing this because we think it's the right thing to do. We're doing it because the entire industry thinks it's the right thing to do as well. In fact, Gartner says that user entity behavioral analytics and SOAR components are essential to any modern next-gen intelligent SIEM, which is certainly what Devo has been leading the forefront of in the market for quite some time. So here's our additional user entity behavioral analytics capabilities, which Jacob's going to show you some of here in the live demo in a second. Again, these are there to help you detect those advanced kinds of threats, speed up your investigations, save analyst time and resources, and accelerate the responses. So you're going to see things like risk scorecards and entity risk overviews, which show you the aggregate of risky behavior. It's not just a single alert or detection. What you're going to see here are the way that we detect multiple types of risky behavior or suspicious activity, compound that into a model which elevates an overall risk score for a specific entity, user, or group, and then bubble that up to the top so it's instantly available to analysts, whether they're doing ad hoc investigations or incident response. We've got over 45 models out of the box, all around a very wide variety of data sources. Like I said, it's not just Active Directory data sources or a particular type of authentication. It's around multiple authentication, firewall, cloud, domain, endpoint, and more data sources. Out of those 45 models, there's all kinds of pre-built detections and behaviors that we're looking for to make it easy to pinpoint that anomalous, suspicious, hard to detect activity in your environment. Here's a brief screenshot of the risk dashboard. This gives you a global view of the riskiest entities, devices, and domains. So this is where you need to focus your attention first. You're also going to see how we take those individual signals across multiple data sources and across multiple tactics and bring that together with context to show you the difference between something that's anomalous versus something that's suspicious versus something that you absolutely need to take a look at across the entire MITRE attack framework. This is an example of what I was talking about when I talked about risk-based alerts. When we see multiple signals, multiple examples of anomalous behavior, we then compound and aggregate those risk scores and those multiple signals in both the aggregate risk score and a time series chart to allow you to see why something crossed the risk threshold and generate an alert, and why you need to take a look at it, and how all of those events are correlated together into an attack story. And then we can also do that same visualization across multiple entities and groups, mapping it all to the MITRE attack framework with a heat map of activity in a single view. So like I said before, what you're going to see in the live demo is just a small piece of the over 45 out-of-the-box models to detect all kinds of sophisticated attacks and anomalous behavior like stolen credentials, malicious activity, insider threats, and possible traveler. All of these out-of-the-box alerts can be tuned to your specific organization and your use case to reduce noise and customize the alert and the rules for your types of users and environments. And all of these alerts show up in the same workflows as all the other alerts in the Devo platform. We haven't relegated this to some, remote corner of the Devo platform. All of these alerts show up in the same workflow as just like any other alert inside of Devo. And without further ado, I think it's time to pass it to my esteemed colleague, Jacob. Jacob, are you ready?
Thank you so much, Adam. Yeah, ready to go. Can you hear me here?
Sure.
And then I'll just double check that you should now be seeing my screen on Devo Behavior Analytics.
I can see
just
it, Jacob.
To check. Okay,
yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, welcome everybody. And as Adam just did a great job setting up, Devo Behavior Analytics is a whole new tool for us that lets you kind of compile and aggregate context around entities in order to be detecting risky and unusual behavior, and then be able to examine and explore that much further to find threats and things that are going on inside of your environment that you might not be aware of. So what I'm seeing here, the starting point for this is obviously a dashboard where we can look at all the risk that has been compiled over time across our environment, et cetera. And I'm actually going to pivot and look at this a little bit backwards rather than going here at the dashboard where you might start your day-to-day work. We'll go over here to the content manager. The content manager is where we manage all of the detections that power Devo Behavior Analytics behind the scenes. So the first type of detection that we have are our SecOps alerts risk scores. So these are any out-of-the-box or custom alerts that customers are using that are rule-based alerts. These are traditional things that have always been the bread and butter of Devo. You can see here in this demo environment, we have 249 alerts. In customer domains, we have thousands of these alerts that are going on. What this application is allowing you to do is associate various risk scores with those alerts. Out of the box, every alert has a risk score, but you can also come in and tune those risk scores based on your environment and what's important to you. And what you'll be able to see is that risk will get aggregated for entities across all of the alerts firing inside of your domain. The second part of Devo Behavior Analytics that's really impressive is this idea of behavioral alerts. These are kind of our next generation of alerting features that are actually behind the scenes using ML and AI-based models to be detecting things that are anomalous given past behavior within your environment. This might be something such as detecting an anomalous time of login. Maybe it's completely normal for me to log in at 2 a.m. because I'm a night owl, but for another user, that might be unusual. And you can see here a list of all these use cases. We have, as Adam mentioned, we have 45 out of the box today. In this demo environment, I actually only have 43. But I can come into this toolkit here, turn on use cases that I don't have today, and or tune and configure alerts that I already have enabled. So these are, really cutting edge type things that we're doing to be finding things like, anomalous authentication, domain generation, all those sorts of things using powerful AI ML models behind the scenes that are pulling data out from Devo, processing it, looking for anomalous behavior, and then putting that back into Devo. So it's cool that we have all of these alerts and things, but what do you actually get out of it? That's where we'll pivot back over to the dashboard. What this dashboard is showing, it's showing all of the entities that have been tracked via these models and these rule-based alerts over the last 7 days. It's showing me which of those entities have compiled risk, and then it's also doing some classification of higher, lower risk. Here at the top, we're seeing a timeline of how often we're firing rule-based SecOps alerts, those are the red ones, versus how often we're firing behavioral alerts. As you might imagine, in our demo environment, we're not having quite as many anomalies because we're primarily pumping data in here on loops. But we have lots of rule-based alerts that are firing, and then some synthetic data that's firing those anomalous-based alerts. Down below, I can have quick at-a-glance summaries of a few different ways of looking at what might be the riskiest entities. I can look at users, devices, and domains that have compiled risk over time. These risk scores are all related to those risk scores that were assigned in the other tab of this panel. The other thing that I can see that might be interesting is that I might want to look at just users that have the most distinct risks. Even if they haven't compiled a high score, but if they fired a lot of low score risks, we might still want to look at those users. This dashboard is great, but dashboards only go so far. The next step here is obviously to pivot into a deeper view. Let's say that I see that Sue Richards has this risk score, and I want to know what's going on with her. Well, Sue didn't have any risk until this morning, but I see this morning around 10 a.m., Sue jumped up and had a 13.46 risk score, which has remained rather static over time. I can look at this in a few different ways. I can view the timeline of the types of risk that she had mapped against the MITRE framework. So I can see the initial access occurred this morning at 9:05, and then later on at 9:05, that should say 9:06, there was some lateral movement detected. If I also wanted to look at all of the places within the MITRE framework that she's touched, I can come here and see that against this table. Finally, down at the bottom, I can see all the different alerts that Sue has fired along with their additional context. So I can see this morning at 9:25, we fired an alert saying that Sue was the subject of a phishing attempt. I can click in here and see what happened. There was some initial phishing access to Sue. I could then look at the next alert. AWS detected users creating a key. You can also go down here and look at a behavioral alert, which says that this is the first time a user has navigated to a domain. And within here, I can see that Sue navigated to mso365_support.net. Now, I see this and I think, okay, this is someplace that Sue hasn't been before, and this looks like it might be a phishing site, right? Somebody is impersonating Microsoft Office 365 support with this bad domain, and this might be a red flag to me that something unusual is going on. And it makes that additional context lends, credence to, okay, the fact that Sue logged in without MFA seems like a possibly really bad sign for my environment. And so I probably want to go in and start to ask Sue what's been going on with her system. A few other things that I can see here. I can click down and view the related entities that Sue has been interacting with. You can see, for instance, this account number, and I can see that this account has been interacted with by 2 users, both Sue and Tina Frederick. So I can kind of pivot between the entities that are displaying these behavioral anomalies in my environment and kind of click around and investigate these further. So those are the main features that we certainly wanted to explore today. The last thing that I'll overview is that, we certainly have a dashboard where if you do come in, you don't want to just look at the highest risk users, but you will actually want to come in. Maybe Sue isn't a high risk user, but you just want to search for her. You can search for Sue Richards. You can filter on, devices, users, and domains. Apply various other filters based on timelines and risk levels, and start to slice and explore this data in even more ways. With that, I will wrap up the demo section. I think that this dashboard is certainly a very powerful tool, as well as the content manager that lets you turn on and configure the alerts, whether they're rule-based alerts that you're already using within Devo or the new behavioral type alerts that we have. And yeah, I hope that will be a useful tool for lots of Devo customers moving forward. With that, I'll stop sharing my screen here, and I will pass it back to Adam.
All right, thank you. Okay. I just want to hit on a few other things here at the end. Hopefully you saw, in that demo that we're not just relying on 1 or 2 data sources, like a lot of, I think, the people that are out there, like I think of Microsoft Sentinel, where all of their UEBA is based around Microsoft Active Directory, authentication. So if you're not using that, you're missing all of the authentication events that are around Okta or any other single sign-on or authentication pieces that you're using. And of course, this solution is built to handle the cloud scale, that Devo has always been built to handle, that we excel at. Deployment is easy, especially if you're already a Devo customer. Then Shannon will actually talk about how you can get UEBA for your own environment if you're already a Devo customer. And I think you certainly saw that everything in here is mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework with our time series timeline reconstruction. And then lastly, this UEBA piece, I said it at the beginning, but I think it bears repeating that this is just one more tool, right? Something that we've kind of improved and enhanced, as Jacob was just saying. But it's one more tool in your toolkit, along with all of the other tools that the Devo platform, along with Devo SOAR, bring to the table in terms of a cloud-native, next-gen intelligence SIEM at true cloud-level scale as a service. So certainly, if you're already a Devo customer, then you know about this already. But if you're not, certainly take a look at the wider Devo platform and offering. And of course, what we're striving for here is a massive reduction in those false positives to produce alerts that you absolutely need to care about and investigate. And you can investigate those alerts faster, not just with UEBA, but with all the tools that Devo brings to the table to help you investigate those faster. That increases threat detection and a boost in analyst productivity, faster mean time to resolution. So that's what we're all going for here with this UEBA and everything that Devo brings to the table. So with that, I want to conclude and open up the table for any questions that you all may have. Is there anything in the chat, Shannon? Shannon, I think you're muted, or at least I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
There you are.
Thank you, Adam.
Sure.
Yes, we can absolutely dive into Q&A. We do have some questions here in the chat. So we can start with the question, could I open the dashboard outside of the tool using APIs for a specific entity?
And I'd be happy to take that one. The answer is the dashboard itself, is UI only. But the really cool part about this is all the results that are streaming out of behavioral analytics are actually being written to Devo tables behind the scenes. So there's a few specific new tables that are created whenever you start using this application. One of them is called Entity Behavior Signal Events. One of them is called Entity Behavior Risk Events. And those tables contain information both about the behavioral alerts that are being fired within the system, as well as about that aggregated risk for entities. Because we're writing those underlying Devo tables, what that means is you don't need anything new to access these results. You can just use our query API, the exact same that you would ask a question about any other table within Devo. You can go in and ask questions about, hey, which user has the most risk over the last 30 days, or which user has triggered, the most behavioral type risks. So maybe a long-winded answer, but the answer is certainly yes. You can use our query API to be asking questions and interrogating all of the information coming out from this tool.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob. We have another one here as well. Having had these behavioral analytics deployed to current customers, what would you say is the minimum baseline period for these alerts?
Yeah, that's another great question, one I'd be happy to take again. I think we definitely think that a minimum of 30 days of past data is a starting point for what we'd start to say if you want to get good signals out of this. That both is able to establish some baselines for various models, as well as rule out lots and lots and lots of noisy alerts for first-time activity and things like that. That being said, some of our models, things that are looking for trends over week-long periods and things like that for login times, etc. Do even better with 90 days or more of data. So the answer is it varies a little bit model to model. Certainly at least 30 days, kind of up to 90 days of data to get really the very best results.
Perfect. There is one question here that I can answer. It says, who should we talk to about this if we're already a Devo customer? The short and quick answer is to go directly to your CSM to just get the answer to this. And then I see we have another question here. Are there any plans to integrate LDIP information to provide additional context around users and group membership?
Yeah, another great question. I think everybody's very, very much on point here today with all their questions. Yeah, I think that there are plans to incorporate LDAP and Active Directory type information in a much more integral way within this. Already today, based on alert definitions, you can incorporate that information by defining your alerts to reference lookups and various things like that. But we're looking to tighten that integration even more in the coming quarters so that you can kind of have that information all there. And you might be able to do things such as elevate risk for certain groups, saying, hey, if you know, a contractor logs in at a different time of day than they normally do, that's maybe less important than if the CEO logs in at an unusual time of day and then performs some unusual action. So certainly on the roadmap, you know, something that you can do today with a little bit more work yourself, but something we're looking for even tighter integration on coming soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob. And then we also have, is this a separately priced package? The answer to that is yes. It's not included in the original packaging with the Devo platform. Or Jacob and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that is correct. There is an additional upsell charge for that.
All right. Perfect. And then we also have, can we deploy this today in our environments?
Yes, you could. Everybody's eligible for it. So all Devo customers are eligible for it. It's not what I would call generally available. It's more of a limited availability, but you can certainly talk to your CSM about getting on that limited availability release, and we will, take those as scheduled in terms of rollouts. So certainly there's nothing blocking existing customers for becoming eligible for the UEBA.
Amazing. And then I did just see another question come in here. It says, outside of the 45 models, is there the capacity to create our own models and security hypothesis?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think there are a few different answers to that. The general answer is yes. And I think we're going to have some phased rollouts to things like that. First of all, to touch on how a lot of our models are built, a lot of the models are built on top of what we consider to be templates. Things like look for the first time a user performed an action, or look for an unusual time that a user logged in. Kind of where you can imagine you can use that exact same template for varying X, Y's, and Z's, right? You might be able to perform the exact same type of analysis that says, look for an unusual time for a user to log in, the exact same way you might say, look for an unusual time for a machine to connect to an IP, or various things like that. So I think there is a view in the future of being able to kind of expose those templates so that customers can plug in their own parameters to the models that we already have today. I do think that is more of a longer term view, sometime in the next year or so, being able to support those kinds of custom hypothesis and interrogations of the data. The even longer term view is behind the scenes, all of these things are actually Docker containers that are streaming data out and applying machine learning context against them behind the scenes. We do, in the long term, want to be able to support customers to actually write their own models, provide templates of here's a script that we've used in the past to be applying this type of logic XYZ, and then allow customers to write their own models and apply those against the data, kind of at a code level rather than at a template level. So I hope that kind of touches base there on those things.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that I'm sure, in the future, we're going to be adding, more models through the Devo Exchange that would be available to be downloaded, deployed. Certainly, if customers wanted to share their own models that they've created on Devo Connect. I think that is something that I would encourage everyone to do. Or even if you've done some custom tuning in your environment that you wanted to share that you thought was particularly effective, all of that kind of content distribution and expertise, I guess, grassroots sharing is available right now. And I'm looking forward to, as this gets live and deployed to more and more customer accounts, how that knowledge spreads over Devo Connect. So stay tuned for that as well.
Perfect. Thank you both. And then I do see a new question here that says, given that the analytics work across more than one product, is there a way for triage purposes to pivot from the risk-based alert to a data search, which includes the product's data, which led to the detection, maybe including some of the key entities already populated in the search query?
So hold on. I think I guess, Jacob, I'll let you take that. But is the root of the question, can you right click from that and do a go to query and then bring that up in data search? Is that what you understand that to mean, Jacob?
Yeah, that's what I take it to mean. I mean, right now, the capabilities that we have is you can certainly go and look at you can right click and go to search for both the behavioral based alerts and the SecOps based alerts to go and look at the context of those alerts. Going and looking at the underlying data for some of the behavioral alerts is a little bit more tricky because the context of them might be much more varied than just a single event. But we certainly always highlight, here's the table that it came from, and provide the most of the raw context that we can in the appropriate format for that.
Awesome. And I believe that was our last question. I don't see any more coming in unless anyone has any last minute things to put in. But I'm not seeing anything. But also after the fact, feel free to contact me either on LinkedIn, or my email is shannon.darkangelo@devo.com. If anyone does have any additional questions, I can make sure they do get answered by the right people. But like we were saying, again, if you're a Devo customer and interested, feel free to go directly to your CSM and they can plug you with the right people to talk to about our behavioral analytics and more as well. But I believe that concludes today's webinar. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Adam and Jacob, for presenting and answering all the questions for us today. Oh no, I see. There was one final question. They were asking if you're supposed to be able to see the other attendees' questions. They come through privately to us, unfortunately, so you guys can't see them. But this recording, like I said, will be available after the fact. So if you'd like to go back and have us kind of check over the questions that were asked and then also be able to listen to the answers again, you're welcome to do that. It'll be posted on the website. We have another question, actually, that just came in. Before I conclude.
We got time? We got time.
We got plenty of time. So if people have questions, feel free to put them in. But it says, is there a retention limit on the number of UEBA alerts?
The number of alerts? I don't think so. Jacob, I'm not aware of a limitation on that.
No, I think in terms of retention, for fired alerts, no sort of limit there. I do think that there may be some the pricing. There may be pricing considerations based on the number of models that you want to turn on, but not at all around the number of alerts that are firing. And I'm not actually certain on the pricing part there. But as far as retention, no. Once alerts are fired, as I mentioned, they're written into Devo tables. Those alerts are then stored for history, so you can go back and look at, up to 400 days of past fired alerts. Obviously once the product has been running for 400 days. So,
right.
Hopefully we touched on the relevant details there for the question, but I think that was it.
Okay. I can wait just another 30 seconds just in case someone does have a last minute question before I conclude. Just keeping an eye on the box here.
Going once.
Twice. Okay. Like I said, you guys are more than welcome. This will be uploaded to our website. You can go back, check the questions, check the answers, go watch the demo, and pass it along to your team as well. But thank you, as I said, everyone, for joining today. We really appreciate your participation and your attentiveness to signing up to this webinar. So thank you, Adam and Jacob, and that's it. Thank you, everyone.